How far would you go to make an impact in the world? The 10 incredible entrepreneurs will visit our campus to tell their stories and share the steps they took to be catalysts for change. The Entrepreneur Leadership Series, the most valuable one-credit class you will ever take.
Joel's story is a study in perseverance. When his brother John handed him the operations of Kodiak Cakes over in 1997, he was just 3 years old, an economic major attending the University of Utah. And over the next 12 years, Joel juggled side jobs, earned an MBA from Oxford University, and still found time to make Kodiak Cakes a success. And in 2017, Joel was honored by Utah Business Magazine as CEO of the Year, and in 2018, he was honored by Ernst & Young as Entrepreneur of the Year. Today, Joel continues to run Kodiak Cakes, which is now located in Park City, Utah, and is the second biggest pancake mix line in the country. He enjoys spending his free time in the surrounding mountains and with his friends and family. Give it up for Joel Clark.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. It's been a really fun evening so far. Anytime I get asked to go and hang out with some college students, it's like, of course, there's great energy. You guys have a good vibe. Universities are just an incredible setting of progress and development and learning, and that's just such a cool time of life. So it goes by fast. I know at times it's a huge grind, and you're like, man, I can't wait to be done. But it is such a cool time. So don't wish it away too fast, you know. So I think, so for me, I think I appreciate being here. It's really, really cool, and I've just been so impressed with this university. It's an awesome university. You guys have great leaders, great faculty, and this is such a cool program. I think there's an emphasis on leadership. There's such a great emphasis on entrepreneurship here, and these are tools that will really help you and prepare you, and things that you'll look back and go, man, I had such a great experience, and learned so much, and you'll be able to apply so many of the things that you learn. So really, my intent here tonight is just to, I hope that when you listen to my story, that you might feel a little bit of inspiration to think big, pursue big goals. Don't be afraid to do that. And if anybody can do it, why not you? You know, really, why not? Why not you? And then I hope that you'll feel inspired to be your best, so you can go and get after the things that you want to go and do. So I'm going to start with this. This is one of the, so we have a creative team in-house at Kodiak, and we have like a videographer, and we create a lot of content in-house on our own. So we made this ad, and it's literally one of my favorites, and it's probably one of the most scrappy ones that we did. And the guy in this ad is our CFO, and he's like the best guy ever, and he does such a good job in this. So see if we can get this thing to play.
You know, a lot of folks don't think we can grow much up here in Park City. We've been harvesting packets like these for generations. That's why when autumn rolls around, people around here know oatmeal's in season. These oatmeal trees have been in my family for generations. In fact, my great-grandfather planted them when he first arrived on this here plot of land. Oh, that's a good one. And growing oatmeal ain't an easy way of life, but makes folks happy, you know, and full. That's the only way of life I know. Takes a lot of hard work growing the perfect bowl of oatmeal. One that's got a balance of whole grains and protein, but tradition around here. Holy mackerel! I was going to the state fair. Sure, there are plenty of other breakfast options out there. But when you need something that's really going to hit the spot, it's Oaktober. We're oatmeal's in season.
So yeah, not a lot of finance and accounting people are that great in front of a camera, but he just did an awesome job. So what I'm going to do is I want to spend some time. I want to tell you guys the story of Kodiak Cakes, just kind of how we got going. I think you learn a lot from hearing other stories, right? Hearing entrepreneurial stories or others, career stories. And I think I'm going to go through the story of Kodiak, and then we'll talk about some success factors, some reasons why I think that we had success or why it's having success still. And then I'll just, give you a few words of advice here at the end, and then we'll open up to some Q&A. So I'm a car guy. I love old trucks, old 4x4s, and I started buying and selling trucks and Jeeps and Broncos and stuff when I was about your age, when I was in college. So my freshman year of college, I bought and sold a whole bunch of trucks, and I've been doing that all through the years. It's so much fun, and to me, it's fun. To my wife's chagrin sometimes. But I think overall, it's probably a net plus, I'd say. But it's been fun. We've driven lots of different kinds of old trucks, Jeeps, and some are nice and some are kind of crappy. But what I've done kind of for this presentation is I compare the phases of Kodiak into a vehicle. So each phase I compare to some sort of vehicle that I had over the years. Okay, so I'm gonna start this way. So when I was phase 0, this is the wagon phase. So when I was 8 years old, my mom was way into healthier eating and whole grains, and my sister used to say, everything we have is green and brown, Mom. Why can't we just get some white bread? Why can't we get Doritos? And we never had like junk food around the house. And so, but one thing my mom made that we loved was she had this great pancake recipe, and it was whole grain. We had a wheat grinder in our garage. She would grind her own wheat, and she made these incredible pancakes that we loved. So one day, my mom always had this dream or idea of making a product out of it and selling it. So when I was 8 years old, we packaged up some homemade pancake mixes in brown paper lunch sacks, like you can see here. And we put them in my red wagon, and I went around the neighborhood. I knocked on doors and sold pancake mixes to the neighbors. And so, it's kind of a lemonade stand thing, it's like, but in a red wagon selling pancake mix. And so that was really the earliest roots of Kodiak and kind of the inspiration of starting a business selling pancake mix. So that's the wagon phase. We didn't keep it going though. We let it die out, and it was about 12, 13 years later. My older brother, John, was 28 at the time, and he was talking to my mom. He's like, hey, Mom, I want to start a business. Do you have any ideas? And my mom's like, hey, why don't you take the pancake idea and create a real product and make a business and go start selling it. So I compare this phase of the business. This is phase 1, the startup. This is 1995 to 1997. So my older brother, John, I compare this phase to a 1978 Ford F-250. And I found, that is his truck. I found that truck for him, and he bought it to kind of help start the business. And so, some things about it, like it had a good motor, it had good power, there was a lot of energy. And so this is kind of like how this phase was. My brother had a lot of energy. He was ready to roll and get this business going, right? He's pretty young, and he was entrepreneurial. He was excited to get a business started. But what happened was he was really low on fuel, so he ran out of gas. And so didn't have a lot of resources, right? Didn't have really a lot of money or capital to put into this business. And so, and this is a picture of our old office in his basement. He had a little, like an unfinished basement. We put a little desk down there. And then, so he got this, so what happened was he got this pancake mix all ready to go. And based on our mom's recipe, created the brand, called it Kodiak Cakes, and asked me if I would help him start selling it. And so I was 21, and this was the fall of 1995. And so John and I decided to go out and start selling this little pancake mix. And so we started in gift shops. So we went to Park City Main Street, and he and I each took a side of Main. It's like a hill. It's like kind of goes up this hill. There's all these shops on either side of the road. He took one side of the road. I took the other side of the road. And we started walking into these gift shops and just saying, hey, do you want to buy this pancake mix? And so we sold all that we had taken with us that day and picked up a bunch of gift shops. And so then the next weekend we took a trip to Sun Valley, Idaho. And John took half, and we loaded his car full of pancake mix, full of cases of pancake mix. John took half the town, I took the other half the town. We said, hey, let's meet back here at like 1 o'clock or whatever. And we went around and went into all these little shops and sold all the pancake mix that we had. Well, the next weekend we went up to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, did the same thing. We're like, well, let's go to these ski towns. There's a little more disposable income, and maybe people could afford to buy a high-end pancake mix. So at the end of the few weeks that I helped him, we picked up about 50 gift shops, and then John was just kind of running this little business on the side from his basement. And somebody would call up and say, hey, send me a case of that pancake mix. It's awesome. And so John was just by the case, UPS, a case here and a case there, to all these little gift shops. But we started getting letters in from consumers, and this was really pre-email. Email was kind of starting to happen, but there wasn't a lot of email yet. People were still kind of handwriting letters. Throw it in the mail. Hey guys, love your pancake mix. This is really good stuff. Thanks for making this. And one of the letters came from this guy named Tom Bodette, and that's him right there on the bottom. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. He does commercials for Motel 6. He's got a really dry voice, and he always says at the end, I'll leave the light on for you. But he's actually still on the radio. I can't believe it. So anyway, Tom Bodette sends this letter in, and he's in his cabin in Alaska, and he's holding this cool cast iron griddle and making pancakes. And we would get all these letters, and people would say, hey, love this pancake mix. This is really cool. And so from that, John felt like, man, I got to keep this thing going. And it was hard, but he finally, at the end of 1997, John came to me and he's like, Joel, I cannot keep going with this little side hustle business that I got. He's like, I just can't keep doing it. He's like, I want to go back to school. He wanted to go get his MBA, and he just didn't have time to keep doing this on the side at night. So he's like, I'm thinking about just shutting it down. Unless you want to take it over, it's all yours. And so I was excited. I was 23. I was going to the University of Utah. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was in similar phase as a lot of you guys in life, right? And I was like, I'd love to do it, John. So we wrote up a contract, and John sold me the business for $1. And so I paid him. So we had like an official contract. I paid him $1. I had this little business that really was not much, right? It's just one single product, and selling it in a lot of gift shops. And John had put so much time and effort and work into creating this brand that still needed a lot of work to get it off the ground, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll take it over. And so I was excited. So I'm going to go to the next phase here. Maybe. Here we go. So phase 2. So this is the side hustle. So this is 1997 when I took over to 2004. And I compare this phase to a 1993 Schwinn mountain bike. Now look at that beauty. I mean, that thing is sweet. Now I bought that bike, a bike just like that. That's not actually, I couldn't find an actual picture. I bought a bike just like that from my brother John, actually. And I paid him a lot more than $1 for it back then. And so I had this Schwinn mountain bike, right? And it was like I was able to get around. I just didn't have very many resources. And so what I did when I took it over, I started working with gift shops, I started to realize if this business is ever going to go anywhere, I've got to get out of gift shops and into grocery stores, or we're never going to get anywhere, never going to really make money. And John had been thinking about that too, and had already been working on some grocery stores. And so during this phase, this was a side hustle for me for this many years, like 7 years of my life, trying to keep this little pancake thing going on the side. Finishing up school, my wife and I went to graduate school in England, so we left. I hired a student at the University of Utah to run it for me while we were gone. And I paid this guy $10 an hour to run this little pancake thing. And I'm like, look, just keep it alive, man. You don't have to try to grow it. If it's alive when I get back, that's great. That's all you need to do. And so he did. He kept it alive. And then when we got back from graduate school, we still had this little side hustle there. And it was still kind of cooking along. So revenues from this time, when I took it over, the revenue was $29,000 total revenue, and then we built it up. By the time I went full time with it in 2004, it was about $150,000 in revenue. So still really, really small. So let me keep going here. Phase 3, this is the bootstrapping phase. So finally, after those 7 years of running this little thing on the side, I'm like, man, I've got to get into this thing and just work at it full time or it's never going to go. So finally, I quit my job, 2004, and I jump in full time. And my dad, who was 65 at the time, was basically retired. He's like, I'll help you, Joel. Let's do this thing together. So we dive into this little pancake business together. And what made me kind of feel like I could dive in is I was able to land Safeway stores around the country. So Safeway had they had like 1,200 stores, and this lady, her name was Donna Sullivan, and I had sent her samples of the pancake mix. And I said, hey Donna, I'd love to try to get this pancake mix into your stores, you know. And so I would always call her, try to get her on the phone to try to get an appointment to go meet with her. And she would never answer the phone or anything. Finally, she calls me one day, and I'm at work at my job that I hadn't quit yet. And she goes, hey, Joel, I love your pancake mix. We're going to bring it into 1,200 stores. I'm like, what? I'm like, we've never even met. Do you want me to come and like meet with you and talk about it? And she's like, no, we're beyond that. We're good. We're going to bring it in. I'm like, oh, sweet. Okay. So that's when I decided to quit my job. So I quit my job because I felt like I could live on this little business finally. And so, and it was tight. I mean, even then, those 1,200 stores was tight. In food, the margins are slim, so you have to have a lot of volume or a lot of products. So I dived in, my dad helped me, and I compare this phase 3, this bootstrapping phase, to a 1978 Chevy Love. So has anybody ever heard of a Chevy Love pickup truck? We got a few hands. That's cool. Okay. So we had a Chevy Love just like this one in the picture here. It was white, and we inherited it from my grandpa when I was probably 13, I think. And so my dad and I would drive this thing. So I lived in Salt Lake, and we had a little piece of land up in Midway, which is where we live now. So my dad and I would go up there on weekends, and we planted trees and we would water. But if you've ever done Parley's Canyon in a 1978 Chevy Love, it kind of gives you an idea of what this phase was like. So Parley's Canyon in 1978 Chevy Love is like, so it's a 3-speed automatic with like no power. And so you're going up Parley's Canyon, and the engine is just revving in second gear, like, just revving real high, going 35 miles an hour. And then it shifts down to third gear, and it goes, and then it just kind of bottoms out, right? And then it goes back, and it's just barely going. And then you're back into second gear, and it's kind of, back up to 35 miles an hour, and then bogging down again. Frustrating as heck, right? And so I remember my dad and I would drive this all the time. It's like, so this was what this phase felt like. So my dad and I are in here. We're trying to get this business going. I mean, I'm full-time. My dad is already retired. So I wasn't paying him hardly anything. It's because he's like, hey, Joel, I'll help you out, So he's kind of working for nothing. But we were able to start getting a little bit of momentum. And so 2004, revenues got to $230,000. In 2007, revenues got up to $800,000, and so we were like, okay, we're making some progress. Does anybody know what happened in 2008? What's the word? Crash, recession. So what happened is at the end of 2007, early 2008, this was starting to happen. Fuel prices were going crazy, so our shipping costs to get Kodiak Cakes around, our shipping costs were going nuts. Wheat prices were at all-time highs. Egg white prices were going up. All these costs were going up, and we were barely making enough money to live. I'm barely making it. Finally, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta either raise capital for this business, which, by the way, there was not a lot of money going into food businesses at the time. There's more money now, but at that time it was tough to raise money to go into a little business like this. And so what I did is I quit. I quit Kodiak, and I already been in this, so now I'm 10 years in. I'm 33, almost 34 years old, barely making it, and I'm like, okay, I gotta quit. So the next phase is phase 4, stalled out. So the Chevy Love is just, it's done. It's totally done. So what I did is I took a job working for another company. I was running a little healthcare company. And so it was a relief because I needed to make more money. And our revenues went, and I turned Kodiak over to somebody else, another business who was already a food business, to run it for me. And I didn't sell it to him. I said, you guys run this, I'll take a royalty, and you guys run it, and I can go and do this and get this job. And it just didn't go great. And so revenues kind of dropped down, and I started to watch this, and I started to go, man, I've already spent 10 years of my life working on this little business. This is not going to work. And so, we did some soul searching, my wife and I and our family, and we were like, you need to get back into Kodiak and make it work. And so what was hard about this time was these are like early career building years. You think about your late 20s, your early 30s, right? This is like you got to get skills and get your career going. And I remember thinking, man, if I go back in and it fails again, what do I have? Like what skills do I have that are transferable that I could take and go get a job? And so I remember being really fearful about that. But finally, after we talked about it, my wife and I, Colleen, we decided, let's just go for it. And I think I kind of got to the point where I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is I go bankrupt, right? Or, it doesn't work and I have to go get a job. We'll figure it out. So once I kind of got to that point and realized, well, we can deal with it, whatever happens, then I was in. And I was kind of like, I am never looking back. I'm gonna go back into this business, and I'm gonna stick it out, success or fail, to the bitter end. I've already put 10 years in. Now, think about that. It's like, do you do that, or you just call uncle and say, hey, okay, yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's move on to the next thing. So that was a really, really hard decision to make, but we made that decision. And so I didn't look back. So phase 5, this is the restart. I compare this phase to a 1984 Chevy Blazer, and I had one of these too. And so it was a little bit bigger motor, a little more power. This thing could do 65 up Parleys, right? So you can actually get around. And so what I did is I found, my dad was almost 70 at the time, so he's finally like, Joel, I think I need to just retire. And so I needed somebody to work with me. So I placed an ad up at the University of Utah, and I found this guy, Cameron Smith, who joined me in 2009. And he was on fire. And so Cameron joins, he's out of school, he's feeling like a lot of you guys, you're ready to go rock the world, right? You're getting out of school and ready to go conquer. And so Cameron and I, we started working on this business together. And we started to really make some progress. And we started to innovate. We started to think of new products that we could sell. We started to work on more grocery stores to get more distribution, to sell more. And one of the things that was great about Cameron is that he had blinders on. He was blind to the obstacles, and sometimes you just need to be that. You need to know them. So by this time, I'm 10 years into this business, and I almost lost the business a couple times, so I'm becoming pretty conservative, careful. Cameron has none of this baggage. He's like, let's go, right? So this is this next phase. It's 2010 to 2015, and I call this blazing. We've got the Blazer. We're making some progress here. We're still super small. We went from just me and Cameron to, I think by the end of 2015, we might have had 18 people, something like that. 15, 18 people. So we innovated. A couple things that happened, I think, that were real inflection points for us. We came up, we went into protein. We launched a protein pancake mix, and that was pretty innovative at the time. And I remember one day I was at home making pancakes one morning, because as you can imagine, we eat a lot of pancakes at our house. Literally, some weeks it was every day for a long time. A lot of pancakes. In fact, we still eat pancakes 2 or 3 times a week, right? I would say, yeah. Probably 2 or 3 times a week still. Just never really get tired of them, right? It's a way of life at the Clark house, So one day I'm making pancakes, and I'm like looking at this protein powder on the counter, and I go, I wonder if protein powder would actually be good in pancake mix. So I'm making pancakes. I take a scoop of vanilla protein powder, I put it in there, I mix it in, make a pancake, and it was good. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. I wonder if this could actually be a product that we could sell. And this was 2011. And I went to work one day and I told Cameron about it, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. So, but we weren't sure, could this be a real, a mainstream product, or is this just super niche that maybe goes to GNC and nutrition centers and that's it, So we came up with a name, we called it Power Cakes, and we came up with a formula, a recipe for it. But we didn't launch it. We just thought, well, okay, let's just let's watch this for a little while. Let's think about it. Meantime, Cameron started really watching trends in protein. He started watching Google search trends just to see, and we started seeing protein really trend. So finally, in 2014, this was a real inflection point year for us. So 2014, two incredible things happened. The first thing was that we launched Power Cakes, and we launched it at Costco because one of the buyers at Costco had sort of been watching the protein trends, and he was the breakfast buyer, and he had the idea of a protein pancake mix. So he came to us and said, hey, have you guys ever thought about doing a protein pancake mix? We're like, yeah, we have one. He's like, well, let's launch it. So we launched this protein pancake mix at Costco, and it just takes off. I mean, and this was just in the Utah stores, but it really started working. A couple months after that, we had an appearance on Shark Tank. And so Cameron, this guy that I'm telling you about, reached out to Shark Tank a little bit before that and told them our story, and they said, hey, we like the story, we'd love to get you guys on. And if you think about where we were at the time, we didn't have a lot of money for marketing, didn't have a budget, really much of any budget for much advertising, and everything that we were doing was just scrappy, grassroots marketing efforts. And you do that. Like when you're a small business, you don't have a lot of money to go and spend on big advertising campaigns. So you have to get really creative. And I think that's actually one of the greatest things about entrepreneurship is that and having tight budgets, it forces you to become creative and to think, okay, how do we get the word out? How do we get the message out about this product with not a lot of money? And so, Cameron and I were thinking about that one day. And we had just gotten our other pancake, we had two other pancake mixes before this protein one. And we had just gotten them into Target stores, and we're sitting around going, all right, we need some marketing. We need something to happen. So Cameron comes back a couple days later, he's like, hey, Joel, I'm going to see if I can get us on Shark Tank. I'm like, all right, go to town, man. I've never even seen the show, And I literally had not watched it. I'd heard of it. I knew what it was. And so he sent an email in to Shark Tank, and to this day, I've never even seen the email. I don't even know what he said. But they wrote back like a month or two later and said, hey, we like your story. We want to put you guys on the show. So in April, so back to 2014, January, Power Cakes goes into Costco and starts doing well. In April, Shark Tank airs. Our episode of Shark Tank airs. And the sales at Target around the country, and by the way, Power Cakes was not on the shelves yet. It was only at those few Costco stores. So our original pancake mixes just blew up at Target, and they sold out, and we struggled to keep up. And then a couple months after that happened, we launched Power Cakes at Target stores nationwide. And that just took off. And so what we learned from that was we brought an innovation that grew the entire category, that resonated with consumers, that filled a void in the market. There weren't a lot of great, healthy pancake mix items. And what we had been told for many years by buyers in stores was, hey, nobody really cares about pancakes anymore. I mean, that's just kind of a dead category. It's kind of flat. There's no growth. No one really wants to make pancakes. It's kind of a weekend thing, older people, young people don't make pancakes, So we kept hearing all this stuff. So, but we just never really believed it. So finally, when we went into the category with this whole grain, high protein pancake mix, it was amazing to see what happened. So what we learned was it wasn't that the category had a problem, but it was that there was the wrong product, the wrong innovation in the category. And so after we put Power Cakes into Target, that year, 2014, it immediately became the number one selling pancake mix in the category by 20%. It outsold Aunt Jemima by 20%. And we had a meeting with the buyer at Target, and the buyer goes, you guys, this is the most incredible story. And he said, what I expected you guys to take sales away from everybody else in the category. I expected Aunt Jemima's sales to come down, Krusty's sales to come down. He's like, but the most amazing thing has happened. They're all flat. You didn't take any of their sales, but you guys grew the entire category. So all of your sales are incremental to this category. So the buyer's like, this buyer was the hero at Target. He got his bonus that year for sure, because he had a win and he was able to grow the whole entire category. So what we learned was, we really need to be thoughtful about innovation and think about what is incremental to what's already there, right? Nothing, like bringing me to stuff doesn't work, right? It just doesn't, it's really difficult to compete on that. So, we had a great position. We were bringing some new stuff. And so that became kind of a pattern for us for our innovation going forward. So, we already talked about Shark Tank and Power Cake. So I'll kind of keep going. This is phase 6, just continuing in this blazing phase. So phase 7, let me back up just a little bit. Talk about, maybe I didn't. I think I was just going to say our revenues went from this time I think this phase, our revenues went from about $3 million to something like $30 million, like 30 or $40 million. And then phase 7, this was where we really, really started to scale. And we raised capital. We finally got like a legit vehicle. So this is like the Kodiak van, right? This is what I'm comparing this phase to. We actually got like a good vehicle. And it's interesting because we were growing and we were actually profitable. So in some ways we didn't really need to raise capital. But we decided to raise capital because we felt like we really needed expertise. We just needed help running this business. We needed people that had done this before. And so we found a private equity group that had a lot of people that had run food businesses in it, and they were just awesome. And they turned out to be a phenomenal partner for us. And so I think one thing I would just say on that is if you ever do raise capital, the most important thing that you need to look for is who would be a great partner for you. It's way less about the valuation and all that type of stuff. But what is most important is who can really help you and who do you like? Who can you work with? And you want to take their phone call. And luckily, we had that kind of relationship with this group, and they were just the best partners. They cared about people. They cared about doing the right thing. And so from that, we were able to really build some magic together. And so, we really started to build a team. We started to really evolve, and now the business will do over $350 million this year. And so I want to let me do a time check here. I don't want to. Okay, so I want to talk about a few success factors that I think are worth, and I'll try to hit through these pretty fast. So I think the first one is, so I'm going to go through this: passion, brand and positioning, innovation, culture, and people. It's stuff you know, but I just want to reiterate a few points here. Now, so let me first talk about passion. Now, passion is cliche, like we hear it all the time, but it really has a purpose. So let me one little quick story. When I was at graduate school, I took a strategy class, and we were learning about Porter's 5 forces, and this is like a framework to apply to make decisions, to make strategic decisions, right? And so it's a great framework. It's like you evaluate all kinds of market factors to help you just make a decision. And I remember in this class, this professor's like, and by the way, what you're really passionate about should not be a consideration, on what big strategic decision that you should make. And I remember I raised my hand in the class. I'm like, I get that you're trying to you're trying to make this very objective, right? And you're not, because if you're just passionate about something, you might be forgetting about all the other risk factors that could come into something. I get that. I said, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get a little idea off the ground, I said, if you're not passionate about it, you're dead, because the obstacles are so great, you will never get through them. You can't. So you have to be passionate enough to get through the huge obstacles that you're going to face. The other thing that I think that, and so I went and I took the test. I took the final exam of the strategy class. And I argued that in my final exam, and I failed the final exam. And so, luckily you could actually retake an exam at Oxford. And so I went and I retook the exam, and I told the professor what he wanted to hear, and I passed the class, but I didn't really believe it all, right? I was like, no, you got to have passion. It is subjective, but you got to have it. And I think one of the real reasons you need it is because it helps you act against logic. If you're just thinking about logic, then you're not going to do it. Like my wife and I never would have put our home on the line. So our home was collateral for our business loan for years, right? And so logic says, don't take that risk, don't do that. But so much of what you do as an entrepreneur And it's not just it's anything in life. There's so many decisions sometimes where there's risk, but you just need to take a decision that is not logical. Sometimes that is what you have to do. The next thing is positioning. So I talked to you a little bit about positioning, but you've got to have super strong, clear positioning. Look for ownable space. That's something we talk a lot about. It's like, what space in the marketplace can you own? In the pancake category, there's tons of white flour, white sugar mixes like Aunt Jemima, Krusty's, Hungry Jack, all these pancake mixes that have been around forever. Why would we go and try to compete with that? That would never work. So, it in some ways it's so obvious, but what you see this happen all the time where people do not have clear positioning. This happens all the time. Big businesses still do it all the time. We had Krusty's compete with our pancake mix, and they competed so closely with our pancake mix that they infringed on our trade dress, so on our trademarks. So we had to sue them because they were using a brown box like we do, and they had the same colors that we had. They made their formula almost exactly the same. It's like, guys, you guys have been in business a long time. Why don't you come up with something different? I think there's a bunch of smart people in the office, and this is all you guys can do. So it's like, clear positioning is awesome, and then stick to it. There was a time when we were early on trying to get our little pancake thing off the ground, and I remember, and it was hard, and it was going slow. And I went to my brother and I said, John, do you think we should just launch a white flour pancake mix? And, just maybe make it natural or something. And, we're like, because maybe that's what everybody wants, right? So John and I thought about it, and I actually formulated one. I made a really good white flour pancake mix. And then we just sat and we talked about it, and then we finally decided, no, we're not going to launch that. And that is the very best thing that we ever did. If we would have launched that, think about it. We would have no unique positioning or differentiation about us. And so we stuck to our brand and what our position was about, and then we even drove that further. We added protein, and we just became a brand that was known for better for you ingredients, and that is one of the best things that we ever did. I wanted to say just a few words about innovation. So you need to think about how, if you have an idea or a product, what's going to be your follow-on innovation, right? And we didn't think about that for a long time. But once we started to innovate, that's what really started to drive the business. And so, over time, we've gotten into a lot of different categories. We're in, obviously, pancake mix. We created these little cups, this little microwavable muffin cup. We're in the bar space. We've created some innovation in the bar category, and then we launched a high-protein flour. So we've just been continuing to innovate and push where we could go and where the brand can go. And that's been a real success factor for us. And then I would say, I want to talk just for a minute about culture. So I think culture and people is really, this has been, I think, probably our greatest success factor. And I think one of the things, this is what, I won't go through this whole thing, but it's called the Kodiak Code. And so right around 2011 or 2013 or 14, we finally defined our culture, and we sat down and we said, who are we? Who do we want to be? And what is our culture? And so we thought about a lot of things like collaborate, empower, avoid gossip, come as you are and leave better. Like we want to become our best. We want to be ourselves, and we want to embrace people as they are. Come as you are, but we're going to help each of us become our best selves, and that is how you win in business. And so, other things like stay humble, avoid entitlement. And so what this did is it provided a place where people could come could come and work for us and feel like, I fit that. I love these values. I want to be like that. And then it helped us to decide who's a good fit for us. Is this person match our values or not? And then if somebody was, not living up to our culture, we could talk to them and say, hey, this isn't working. You need to make these changes. And the people either do, or if they don't, it's not a great fit. So defining culture early on in a business is really, really helpful, because then it helps you find the right people that are a good fit for you. So, these are just a couple shots of, what our culture has become a really fun. We have just an incredible group of people at Kodiak that they're about work hard and play hard, getting outside, eating better, trying, inspiring each other to do better is what we really want to do. We do a lot of stuff with the bear. The bear goes skiing. The bear goes ice skating. It does all kinds of things. It dances sometimes. And then I think, and this is actually old. I think our team's like twice that size now. It's a really old picture. So I think I'm gonna end with this, and we'll do some Q&A. Just a couple pieces of advice that I would just give, and I would just say I think one of the first ones is just to stay humble. Really, that's a really important thing. And I think sometimes people look at entrepreneurship, or look at people that have maybe made it as an entrepreneur or made it in business, and some people don't retain humility, and I don't understand that. The process is humbling. It's a hard process. Anything that you do is humbling. Anything hard, anything good is hard, I think. And you should learn from that. We need to learn from that. Like, what do we learn from those hard things? And I think it helps you to build compassion and empathy. And then, people want to be around people that are humble. It's tough to be around people that have a lot of arrogance. It's tough to be around leaders that are that way. It's hard. People don't want to follow that type of leadership. But when you have leaders that really do try to be humble and approachable, then the team people that work for that type of leader want to run through walls for that type of leader. And I think that's that's a real success factor. I would just say be patient. Especially like sometimes we'll see people, we all want things to happen fast. Now, in my case, it maybe would have been nice for it to happen a little faster. By the way, it took us 16 years to hit $1 million in revenue in this business. 16 years. So it was really, really hard. It was hard to stick it out. It was hard to stay in the business. But you need to, whatever your goals and dreams are, passions are, you got to give it enough time, because some things really just take time. We love hearing these stories about, overnight successes. Those are like the funnest stories to hear. Wow, that went crazy in like a couple years. And it's just like, that's not really reality for most things, I don't think. I think most things that are valuable, that are meaningful, take real time, and you need to be patient. So and I guess another analogy is, who here knows how to drive a stick shift? Okay, decent amount. When I was growing up, it probably would have been like 90%. We just have way fewer stick shifts now in cars, but still a decent amount. So you think about, if you go from first gear to fifth gear, what happens? It just bogs out, right? You're done. And so you got to think about that in your career. You got to hit all the gears. So, I think we have this tendency, we want to fly through. We want to go first gear to fifth gear. Sometimes we'll get people that'll come into the business and work for us. They're right out of school. And maybe after 6 months, and they're ready to conquer the world. And that's how you should be. You should be excited to get after it when you get out of school. But you also have to be patient. You got to get through the gears. You got to step by step progress in your career, and not try to get out of something so fast to get to the top. It takes time. So you got to be patient. I'd say keep learning and keep applying. When you get out of school, that's kind of when the learning starts, I think. And so to really, I think a great career is when you really keep learning, you keep working. You guys have a great leadership emphasis here in this school. I think that's one of the things that I underestimated the most, was how much I was going to need to learn over time about leadership. Leadership is something that takes time. It takes study. It takes work. It takes practice. But it's worth it. It's hard, but it's so worth it. So you got to learn and apply what you learn. And the last thing I'll just say, and I know I want to save enough time for some questions, but the last thing I would say is just develop a track record of excellence. I think something that you think about when you're coming out of school, it's intimidating because you're kind of like, well, I don't have like these incredible skills to bring to a business or to my job yet. But guess what? That's not what anybody's expecting. No one's expecting that. But what employers and businesses or investors or anybody you work with, what people are expecting, what they're looking for is, does this person have a track record of doing their best, of doing great work? That's what you want to build. Because what happens when we get people in the business that maybe they're new with no experience, when they come in and give their all and do their best, they're going to be successful. Everybody wants them. So sometimes people will get into a role and they may want to move into something else because they maybe have a passion in marketing, or maybe it's in accounting or something. But if that person has done really, really well at their job, then everyone wants them. It's like, oh, this person is killing it, yes, I want that person, So I think it matters. Everything that you do, when your classes, give your best, do your best, get good grades. It matters because you're building this track record of doing your best, and then it becomes part of you, and then you will. That's what people want. You'll be in demand, and it's also really fun when you're just trying hard. When you're doing well at things rather than not, you just feel better about yourself, and it's a lot more fun. So anyway, that's the story of Kodiak. Let's open it up to questions. All right, who's going to go? Who's first? Right here.
So what tips do you have for balancing work, school, and starting a business if you're doing all three at once?
Okay, that's a great question. So he asked, what are some tips for balancing work, school, and a business? How you said, right? And a business on the side. So that's probably one of the hardest things. Like, I'll be honest, I think I remember thinking about that at your age too. And really, I did not aspire to be a 70, 80 hour a week work guy. I did not want to do that. I really didn't. I wanted to figure out how to set my life up so I could have enough balance. It is challenging. I mean, there were times when I was running Kodiak on the side and finishing school, trying to do other jobs. There have been times where it's been out of balance. But I think I think what I also did is I kind of just thought, well, if I can't get it done, if I can't get most of my work done in 40, 50 hours, then oh well, I'll put it off. And so I've done that in many ways. I've really just kind of said, oh well. I mean, there's always more you can do. There's always more hours you can spend. So you just have to set up boundaries and just really try. And there are times where it is tougher than other times. You have crunch times where you're trying to get through this, or you're trying to get through that, or you don't have enough people on the team. And so there are those times, but it also doesn't always feel that bad, because if you do enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't always feel like this horrible work, right? It can be pretty fun too. So good question. What else? Yeah, right here.
What class or classes did you take in high school or college or even on the side that you thought was relevant to?
Yeah, so he asked, what class or classes did I take in college or maybe high school even that were maybe most relevant to this? And so my undergrad degree was in economics. And economics is quite broad, right? It's not quite as specific for a certain skill, for example. So I would say, so I'll kind of answer it two ways. The answer to that question is, in my undergrad, I did take one accounting class as an elective. And that was honestly the most relevant class that I took for my little business that I was doing. That was the most relevant class for that. It was very practical, and I was so glad I took it. Could I have done it without that? Yeah, I could have learned it, could have figured it out. But then I did do an MBA, and I learned, I took a lot of classes that I really loved that were very, very relevant. But what I would really say is, so yes, if you want to take business classes, it's great. Can you learn it without business classes? Yes, you can. You just have to have you have to be a learner, right? You just need to figure out. You need to study on your own. I just think that getting a great degree prepares you for that, because now you're going through the mental rigor that is so valuable. Like some of the things that you do, I'm sure you're like, crap, I'm never going to use this, right? But it's okay, because you're going through this mental challenge that is so helpful for when you get out and when you have to apply yourself, when you have to think. Sometimes we talk at work about how some of the times when we're trying to solve problems, are we putting enough mental thought into this? In rigorous thought is what we say. Did we put enough rigorous thought into something? And you can always tell when somebody didn't, because usually they come to the table with maybe a solution that's sort of halfway. But then when somebody goes and puts real effort, mental energy into something and thinks about it, then you go, oh my gosh, that was great effort, and I love what you came up with. So that's how I would answer that. What else? Right in the back, at the hat. Yep.
So obviously Kodiak is named after Kodiak Bears. What for Kodiak Island?
So he wondered, why did we choose Kodiak as the name? He said, obviously it's named after Kodiak Island or the Kodiak Bear. It's funny. It's funny how we named it. So I think so one of the things that I think my brother John did really well when he created this brand is he thought about, okay, what do I want this brand to be about, right? Like sometimes people will start with a name and then build a brand, and that can work. But what he did is he started with the identity of the brand. What are the elements that he wanted to have in this brand? He wanted something natural, something wholesome. He wanted something rustic, something that was powerful, that represented kind of the outdoors and the frontier. And so as he started thinking about the type of elements, the identity that he wanted with his brand, then he started thinking about names after that. And so he was talking to my other brother one day, and our other brother Tim suggested, "Hey John, why don't you call it Bear Cakes?" And John's like, "Oh, I like that. It's a cool idea." And that evolved into Kodiak Cakes. And so my brother John he'll tell you, I named it Kodiak Cakes because I always wanted to fish on Kodiak Island. And he still never made that trip. We're gonna try to make that trip to Kodiak Island someday. Okay, cool. Who else? What else we got? Let's go here.
So, as you went on Shark Tank and you walked away from this like a couple different opportunities from there, what was the kind of the thought process doing that? Because of course those are very valuable people.
Yeah.
That could bring a lot of value to your business. What was your thought process?
Yeah. So he asked why. So we went on Shark Tank and we ended up walking away. We did get a couple of offers, but we walked away. And he's kind of wondering like, what was our thought process there? Why did we walk away? Those sharks are valuable people. They could bring a lot of value. It's true. And I think that one of the reasons we did. So we went on that show, and we would have done a deal if the terms would have been good. So one of the things that made it pretty easy for us was the offers we got were super low ball offers. I mean, they really came in low compared to what we were asking. I mean, really, like Kevin's offer was a fifth of what we were asking for in terms of valuation. So it was so low that it was just a no-brainer. And what was funny is after those offers started coming in, so when Kevin said, he said, "Hey, I'll give you $500,000 for half the business," right? And we were trying to get $500,000 for 10% of the business. So Kevin just went way down. Well, when that came in, and then Robert, not long after that, said, "Okay, I'll do the $500,000. I want 35% of the business." I immediately had this. It was really weird. I immediately started checking out. Mentally, I started checking out. I'm like, "We're done. Let's get out of here." So I look, and so I was kind of like, starting to kind of close it out. Like, "Hey, thanks." And Cameron, who was on the show with me, he had a little more presence of mind to say, "Well, should we counter?" And so I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." So we countered, and we still weren't even close. But it was so far apart from us. We're like, it wouldn't be worth it. They'd have to bring so much value to the table, for that to be worth it. So we walked off, and fortunately, they still aired the show, and we got the publicity out of it. So really, it worked out. It did work out great. All right, hold on. What time do we need to wrap up, Andy? It's 7:01. Couple more questions. Okay, right here.
So, I really like what you were saying about developing a track record of excellence, positioning, and showing who you are and stuff. Because I'm planning on being a scientist, and I don't want to start a business. But do you apply these ideas of your business's reputation, etc., to you as a person? And how do you do that?
Okay, so he said he likes the concept of developing a track record of excellence, and that he's saying, I'm not necessarily want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a scientist. And then let me make sure I understood this part of your question. Are you kind of saying, so the fact that Kodiak became successful, do I attribute it to my personal kind of how I am?
How do you apply this concept of positioning and that sort of a thing to yourself? Do you? And how would you work on it?
That makes sense. So he's saying, how do you apply that concept of positioning, like brand positioning, even to yourself, right? And how do you apply that, right? Is that kind of what you're saying? I think that's a really good point. I mean, I do. I think thinking about yourself and how you want to live your life and position yourself is important. So, for example, I think it's a really cool thing to create a personal mission statement. I didn't even do that till probably, a year and a half ago. I kind of wish I would have done it a little earlier because maybe it would have helped guide who I wanted to become a little more. But I think there's something cool about that. I mean, you may say, look, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to surround myself with this type of people. I want to develop this type of science, or I want to do this. And I'm going to develop a track record of excellence in this track, in this path. And that's differentiated. That's different. You can totally do that. And people will want what you have to offer. They'll want it. And there will be a great path for you. You know, it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship, but I love the idea of how do you position yourself? What do you want to do? And be deliberate about who you want to become. I think it's cool. Okay, well, we have time for one more. Yeah, right here.
What's your all-time favorite old truck that you've had?
He said, what is my all-time favorite old truck that I've had? Okay, I would say it's probably, we have a 1979 baby blue Bronco that I think is awesome. It's really cool. It's super fun. It's in really good shape. And it's baby blue. It's like really big, it's masculine, but it has baby blue, so it tones it down. So good question. Well, thanks, you guys. It's fun to be with you.